Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the November 28th, 2023 meeting of the Village of Fairport Zoning Board of Appeals. Meeting is hereby called to order. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Dan Duvidio. I am the acting chairperson tonight in the absence of our regular chairperson, Mrs. Mewison. And I would also like to acknowledge that our alternate, Mr. Sparks, has been called up to active duty tonight to fill out the roster. Thank you, sir. And with that, I would like to talk a little bit about the procedure tonight and how it will be happening. A case will be called. There are two cases tonight. Each case will be called, and the applicant will have the opportunity to present their case with documentation. And other members of the public are welcome to stand up and speak either in opposition to or in support of the case. The board members can ask questions of any of those folks, either the applicant or the people speaking. After that happens, the public portion of the meeting will be closed, and the board will then deliberate on each case one at a time, first case, second case, tonight. At that point, the board members will deliberate, and a vote will take place, either affirming or denying the application, or affirming it with certain conditions, but we'll get into that. Comments in support of are taken first, in opposition to are taken after that. And after the public portion closes, there'll be no further comments from any members of the public. If your case is approved tonight, a written decision will be mailed to you. Before we open the first case, I'd like to point out that we are all volunteer neighbors here. And I'd like to go around and have each board member introduce themselves and say a couple of words about themselves as a way of roll call and of introductions. Sir.
Good evening. I'm Aaron Stuckey, and I can say a couple of words about myself as requested by our board chair.
Again, I'm Dan Duvidio, lifelong Fairport resident with a background in IT and finance.
I'm Justin Beckman. I've been part of the board for about 3 years now, and I work for a local home builder.
My name is Philip Sparks. I'm a retired attorney and law teacher. My specialty is in municipal law.
I'm just going to jump in and encourage all of the board members to speak directly into the microphone to ensure that those at home are able to hear you and those in the audience. I'm Jill Wiedrich. I'm the village planner. Mr. Duvidio, I'll introduce the first case.
Yes, the first.
I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. The meeting minutes.
Would you like to do the introductions for the first case, or
We'll do the meeting minutes first.
sorry?
The meeting minutes from September.
Oh, sorry about that. These procedural
Yeah,
things.
we're all jumping ahead.
May I have a motion to approve the meetings of the October meeting, please?
September 26th, I have.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 26th
Thank you,
meeting.
sir, and seconded?
I'll second.
Mr. Sparks, thank you. Vote to approve the minutes of the prior meeting. It's so approved. Thank you.
And now I'll introduce the first case.
And these procedural things out of the way. Okay. The first, we have Christine Strandland of Filkin Street, who is requesting an area variance for the construction of a fence which exceeds the height limit of the village code in one portion of her side yard. So if the applicant could please approach the podium. Please introduce yourself and speak into the microphone and tell us your life story.
Hello. Oh my gosh. I am Christine Strandland. I live on Filkin Street. I have been a resident for 31 years. I did live in Albany for several years and returned back 7 years ago. Do I start right in with everything then?
Launch right into it.
So when I came back, I had a new neighbor next door, and we've coexisted nicely with each other. He likes to be outside a lot in his yard. I like to be outside a lot in my yard. And we coexisted happily. I knew he was there at nighttime, vice versa. And then 2 years ago, there was a deck constructed on the side of his house facing my house. That's 18 foot long. And I've lost a lot of privacy from it. I have a side yard that has mature gardens in it that we sit in all the time. And the yard is just not the same. So I'm just really asking to get some of my privacy back in my yard. That's basically what it is. I was unaware that the 9 foot that I'm asking for is extreme until I took a ride up and down a lot of the village roads, and there's not any 9 foot fences around, so I'm just seeing what my options are at this point, because the deck that was built, I already had an established privacy fence over there and established gardens and established bushes that did a nice job making a nice barrier between our yards. But the deck was built raised 4 feet from the ground so that he's not doing anything wrong. I'm not accusing my neighbor of doing anything wrong. It's just the construction of the deck, and it's used as an outside entertainment area. I've lost a lot of privacy inside and outside of my house. So I'm looking for ways to get some of that back. That's plain and simple what's going on here.
Well, can you give us some details of the fence you propose to build, please?
Well, so right now we constructed a 3 foot picket fence of 8 foot sections. So it was 24 foot long. And it was really just a trial to see how it was going to work. My contractor had to go back to Albany for emergency. So anyway, I liked it, I have to admit, because it gave me my whole side yard back. I didn't have to worry about curtains. I didn't have to worry about visibility into my house at nighttime. It just allowed for some nice privacy there. And then because I was in violation, I had to take it down. So, and then I've been informed that, you know, the 3 foot that I'm asking for is probably not going to get approved. So I'm just looking, you know, to see what, the yard's never going to be the same. It's, you know, it's not going to be the same since the construction of the deck. It's changed my house completely, so I'm looking for options to regain some of that privacy. As far as what, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I can bring that in closer to my house and have a shield there. It's too close. I don't think there's enough room for me to put a shed there because there's not enough lot line there.
I think if it were closer to the house, you'd be getting into a structural issue rather than a fence issue if it were attached to the house.
What the code does allow is that you could have a 7 foot fence 10 feet from the lot line, which would approximately bring you halfway in. So you could put a 7 foot fence here for 16 feet in length.
For 16 feet. Oh. Well,
Which-
that's huge. That would give me, you're saying 10 feet from my lot line, from the lot
From
line?
this property line. So we have, if everybody can take a look at this, we have on the survey map, there's 22 feet between the lot line and the structure, the house, the corner of the house. So the code allows you to come in 10 feet, so we'll say approximately there,
Yeah,
and you're allowed to have 7 feet of fencing for a length of 16 feet.
oh. So I could take those, 2 of those sections that are in those photos and put them up there? 7 feet, they have to be 7 feet.
They can only be 7 feet.
Right.
Are there any other questions from the board?
I have just a comment. You've called it a picket fence a couple of times. The sections that I looked at resting in your side yard are stockade fence.
Yes, I'm sorry, it's
Well,
picket
it's just
style,
not,
like,
not to be picky.
no, you're
but
right.
a picket fence is, get it, everybody?
Got it.
A picket fence is the black fence in front of your house.
Correct.
Which you can see through.
Yes,
The fence that you can't see through, which your house is surrounded by,
it's
on the other
stockade.
3 sides, is stockade fence.
Okay.
So this is a stockade fence on top of a stockade fence.
Correct,
Just so that we know what we're,
correct.
and one is old. The one that's there now.
Yes, and
is-
I had a conversation with Jill when I was applying for this variance, saying, I also have to replace the bottom sections too when we go through with this fencing. That's another time, we gotta get the variance figured out first.
The existing fence does have a variance as well.
Long time
Any other
ago.
board members have questions for the applicant?
You pointed out in your comments that the deck that was built at your neighbor's yard is above ground, but all first floors in your neighborhood are similarly situated, aren't they?
Correct. But most of the decks in the village are off the back of a house. This is on the side of the house where my living room and bedroom and office and everything are. So it's living space.
So your objection is that you can see into your house from that deck,
Correct.
but
Yes, I know.
Photographs show that as the 2 houses face one another, there are first floor and second floor windows in what I presume are living room and bedrooms, although I've not seen the interior, that face one another that also allow you to look into each other's house. Isn't that true?
Well, yes. The windows, yeah. But this deck comes out the side, closer to my house. And, there's no privacy in any spot in my yard anymore. And, I just want a little bit of privacy back that was taken, that's all I'm asking for. Because I had a privacy fence already there on the side of the house. There was already a full privacy fence. Fences make good neighbors, it was good, but it's null and void now because there's a deck above it.
Actually, Robert Frost's poem says, "Good fences make good neighbors." So help me understand why a 9-foot fence would be a good fence in this situation.
Because it gives me my privacy back inside and out for that extension of the deck size. And it also gives him all the privacy in the world. He likes to enjoy the late evenings out there, and it would give him all the privacy in the world as well, both of us. So he doesn't have to see me, and I don't have to see him. And it's a sound barrier as well. With the deck being up high and there's no privacy fence anymore, there's no sound barrier.
One of the questions I struggle with here is that, as you've noted, there are very few fences in the village that exceed 6 feet in height, and most of them have been justified in proceedings just like this for that extra height. The 6-foot requirement is one that is essentially a community judgment that that's the appropriate level of privacy to which you can expect living in close quarters as we do here in the village.
Sure.
So what makes your situation enough different from the situation any other villager would have that would necessitate a conclusion that you need more privacy than the rest of the village expects to receive?
Well, in my observance of, there's not many side decks in the village. From what we observed, most of them are off the back. Off the back, who cares? It's open yard. There's no windows, there's no houses. Our side lots aren't that big, and he did an 18-by-8 deck coming, along the side of the house. And it just really takes away privacy on the side of the yard.
But I understood in your opening remarks that you said you agreed that that deck is permissible in this circumstance.
I have been told that everything that he did over there, that it's permissible. It's allowed to build a raised deck on the side of a house in the village of Fairport. Correct.
But, okay, but I infer from the way you phrased your answer that you don't necessarily agree with
I'm
that.
surprised. I've scoured state rules. I've scoured everything. I'm surprised that when a deck is built on the side of a yard like that, that there's not anything to protect the adjacent resident for privacy. I'm just a little surprised that there's no protection against that. You know what I mean? And
I think so. So let me try and rephrase that so to see if I do understand what your concern is. By saying that, you're saying that although you acquired your home in a neighborhood that has close quarters, that you expected that level of privacy would continue regardless of what other homeowners might do?
I didn't expect it. I think it would have been nice. It was nice how it was before. Like I said, I know that he was there all the time, and I like my outside. I have a south-facing house. I photograph the moon a lot over there. I'm out there a lot. I knew he was there. It was great. But now I can't enjoy it anymore or feel comfortable out there because there's no barrier in between us.
You said this area is gardened and has shrubbery and stuff. Is there a possibility that the garden could be reconfigured to put a more effective green barrier, vegetation barrier between you and the next
Well,
property?
there was. There's a 50-year-old forsythia that sits in between our original porches there that the old woman that I bought from must have had planted years ago. And it actually rises over the 6-foot privacy fence that I already had there.
Yeah.
But that's all null and void now too. So, I mean, I can plant more, I can buy more pine trees and I suppose that's what it looks like, that's what I'm gonna have to do to get privacy back. I'm not sure what you're,
Well, again, I'm asking you to help me find a solution to your concerns here,
yeah.
right? And so my question is, could some combination of vegetation, gardening, something, together with the existing 6-foot privacy fence, return to you a portion of the privacy you seek? And you say, you shake your head no.
I won't
tell
be
me-
alive by the time they grow to give me privacy. Yeah, you know, it's, the railing of his deck is as high as my 6-foot privacy fence, and then, so people stand well above that, I'd have to plant some big trees or fast-growing trees, because I won't be alive by the time they, you know, I love trees. I'll plant whatever I have to give me some privacy, and I will do that if there's no, you know, variance allowed for me. That's my only other option, unless I can do what Jill suggested and, you know, put a 7-foot fence of 16 foot in length closer to my house. That will work. That will help.
I don't want to belabor the point, but you say people standing on the deck can see over the fence, but the deck is at the same height as the first floor of that house, and people standing in the windows of that house can do the same thing, can't they?
Not really.
Not
If they're
really.
standing out at the end of the deck.
If you don't
they're
mind speaking
sitting
into
out-
the microphone,
Oh,
only because it's
sorry.
recording.
I think when people are out on the deck, they have much more view of my yard and, you know. I just know things are different for me. I have to be careful coming out of my downstairs bathroom now. I had to move my bedroom, I had to move my living room, and it's affected my privacy inside and outside of the house. I was asked to go and speak to the family before I filed for a variance, and I did. And once I did that, things got worse. I tried to approach the family in a nice way, explaining my bedroom was right there. And unfortunately, that created more problems because I approached the situation. So I'm at a loss too. I don't want to have problems with my neighbors. I'm just looking to get some portion of my privacy back.
I'm sure Ms. Weidrich has talked to you about the fact that we have 5 factors to consider in whether to grant the variance. It's a balancing test, right? And while balancing tests sometimes makes it easier for us to get to where you would like us to be, each of the 5 factors here of the 5 factors here, I'm struggling to find even one that helps your case more than any other does. Can you point me to one that works especially well in your favor?
So Christine, these are the statements that you answered within the application.
Okay.
So those are the standards, and I guess this is a good opportunity for those in attendance and also the public, is that those standards are used by the Zoning Board of Appeals to evaluate the application. And so you'll see that these are all posted on eCode, and the documentation provided details from the applicant's perspective their responses to those standards. And then the Zoning Board of Appeals uses those responses as well as any information that they glean from not only the applicant's presentation, but also from any support or opposition to discuss the application and then come to a resolution.
And I'll go a step further and say no one of the 5 factors necessarily weighs more than the others do. So I'm looking for one that you think might weigh especially heavy here and tip the balance in your favor.
One of the factors?
I'm going to jump in a little bit on this because obviously I've been here listening. And Christine, I think perhaps this might be a good opportunity. You've noted several times for the Zoning Board of Appeals that you feel that the construction of the deck on the neighboring property has impacted your privacy. And as a result, it's not a hardship that you have created, but a result of a situation on a neighboring property.
Correct.
So if you want to speak to that a bit, I think that might be fair too, and also perhaps to reiterate your desire to have a privacy fence and that your privacy be restored, and speak to the height that you feel is necessary to have that privacy restored.
Well, the 9-foot did a great job, but that's not going to be allowed. So, because he's 4 feet off the ground, and 9-foot would have worked, but
Well, let's start there. How did you decide that 9 feet would work?
because when we put the 3-foot up there, in the evening time, it blocks all the light and activity from the deck into my house, and it blocks me from seeing him and him from seeing into my windows. And
Was that was that a lucky guess on your part, or did you? Think that-
actually, I had put a 3-foot board up there for a while, trying to figure out what I would need. This is before I even realized that 9 feet
This
was
is
a.
helpful.
Yeah.
Continue.
And then I had the opportunity for a friend contractor to put the fence up when he was up from Albany a couple weeks ago, and Home Depot had 3-foot sections, so we bought them and tried it, and I really liked it. But then I realized it's not going to be allowed at that height. So it was taken down, and I'm just trying to find out what I can do for privacy back in my yard.
Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this application?
Before we do that, is there any other questions from the board?
No, you want to know, like,
So what we'll do now, Christine, if you don't mind, may I ask a couple of questions? And sort of going off of Phil's, if you could explain to us, you detailed how you came up with the 9-foot. Is there a reasonable height that you think would still accomplish meeting your desire for privacy?
the 9-foot was perfect because, but even a foot in fence would help block some of the noise. It's not going to do anything for privacy, obviously, but it will help with some of the noise, because 7-foot is the maximum allowed, right?
Well,
6.
6 foot is the maximum allowed when you're on the property line. And so the portion of the code that I was citing is when you're 10 feet off of the property line. So that would be about in between where your existing fence is today and your the structure and the house.
Okay, so how do you get lattice when I've seen lattice attached to 6-foot privacy fence? Is that a filing for a variance as well?
Yep, so recently the Zoning Board of Appeals did entertain a case where there was the legalization of fencing that was constructed where 6 feet of that portion was solid. It was stockade, similar to what you have. And they put on anywhere between 1 foot and 1.5 feet of lattice. So that went through the same process. As far as that setting any sort of precedent, it doesn't, because each application is dealt with in its own merits. So
Gotcha.
every property has unique situations, and that's what brings you here today. So the code is created and intended for use of all properties in the village. And so those properties that, for whatever reason, are unable to meet the code end up going before the Zoning Board of Appeals to request a variance to that code. So for the benefit of those in attendance and the public watching at home, the Zoning Board of Appeals does start at no, because the expectation is that you will meet the code, but they are willing to hear and have you plead your case before them.
I'm not sure I'm doing a good job pleading my case. I'm just in pure honesty, looking to get some privacy back. You'd almost have to come through my yard and my house to really understand it. Photos, I don't know if are doing the job. I understand that I'm in a village setting, and especially during COVID, people were building stairs and decks and all kinds of stuff was going on. I didn't realize during the construction of it what an impact it was going to have on my, your home should be peace and quiet and private at some points, and with that, and safe, and
So let's do this.
Well,
do you have
I
another
want to
question?
pick up on, I don't recall a mention of safety at all in your application, so this is a new argument. Can you expand on that a little bit? How would the fence increase the level of safety in your property?
I feel safe in the Village of Fairport. I have just, I have a neighbor that has been very angry at me for questioning the deck, and there has been an outburst, and I was very uncomfortable, and I thought that by adding a fence on to it, that would help, but it has caused more problems.
Are there any other questions from the zoning board? So let's do this. If we could have, Christine, you can sit down.
Mhm.
We'll have people come up and speak in support of the application. And then, Christine, if you'd like to then come back up and we can continue the conversation with the zoning board. So is there anybody that would like to speak in support of the application? I'll ask anyone in support of the application. Yep, if you could come up here, and if you could please identify yourself for the record.
My name is Sherry Radka. I'm a lifelong friend of Christine's. I think you know some of the background of all of this. Christine is a green thumb. She has a beautiful backyard with all kinds of things that I don't even know the names of. And she finds joy sitting in the backyard, tending her flowers, trimming, cutting, all kinds of things. Since this deck was built, it has been nothing but havoc in her life. She's had harassment from this man. I believe there's some neighbors that have witnessed this. A policeman was called. I don't believe it's documented, but she has been an emotional wreck. And to see her like this is not anything that her close friends want to do. So what she is asking is some privacy. She has had to move the bedroom from the south side to a different bedroom in the house because people that are on the deck, I believe it's 18 feet long, if I'm correct. It's a lot of space of a lot of people that stay out there till 11 or 12 o'clock at night. She has lost sleep. She has moved her bedroom to the other side of the house. She has put heavy curtains on all the windows. She has moved her kitchen around so she can have privacy in the morning and for her evening meals. And there has been some harassment at the sidewalk from this man and family who have built this deck off the ground on a side of a house that is odd because most, like she said, most decks are in the back of the house. So what I believe she's asking is a 9-foot fence, and if she has to construct a brand new 9-foot fence, I'm sure she will be in agreement with that, to get some privacy back into her life and to be safe, because the safety factor that you were talking about, she has been harassed on the sidewalk in front of her house, and I know that there's witnesses to that. Again, not documented. So as a friend and supporter for Christine, I thought I would come up and try to let you all know what this has caused for her, not just the deck and the privacy, but it has changed her whole life because she can't sit outside. She can't be in her favorite big bedroom. She has to go to a small bedroom now. And all the windows, there's no sunlight coming in because that's the south side of the house that faces his house. So I wanted to give a little background to that. I hope I'm not out of line speaking for her. She may have had some trouble conveying that to you. But that is basically the background, and she just wants to get her life back. She's been in this house for 31 years, minus some employment in Albany.
Are there any questions? Thank you.
And she lives alone. Okay, thank you.
If there are no further comments, I would like to close.
Anybody else in support? Okay, do you want to come and speak? Okay. One of the things that I do want to note is that the Zoning Board of Appeals is making a decision on the use of land versus anything else that is also going on in the situation. So their focus, their charge is to evaluate how the proposal impacts the use of land and the neighborhood, et cetera. So when they do discuss this, they are going to be focused on the standards.
All right, my name is Nathaniel Harrington. I live at 11 Filkin Street with my wife, Giselle. We've known Chris since we moved in back in June of 2020, and we love being village residents. We love being a part of the town here. It's lovely. And Chris has been a fantastic neighbor. She's really been just a blast to be around. And yeah, just simply we're in support of the fence. I know Chris has provided not a survey, but she's gotten signatures from a bunch of different residents on Filkin Street. And the neighbors that built the deck, the neighbors in question here, they are on record in support of the fence going up as well, which I think is a pretty good argument for the fence going up, considering both neighbors that would border the fence are in support of it.
As a neighbor in that area, one of the standards we have to consider is whether a 9-foot fence like this would have an effect on the nature of the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. If such a fence were constructed between your house and Christine's, what would your reaction be?
Our house is unique because our garage is, well, it's really a carriage house, was built a long time ago, and it's directly on the border of our property line and Chris's. So for us, it really wouldn't make much of a difference if there was a 9-foot fence.
Perhaps I should have phrased my question
Sure.
more generally. So if you were living anywhere on Filkin Street, in one of two houses between which a 9-foot fence was constructed, would that have any effect on the character of the neighborhood?
It would add privacy to the yard, which you guys said, we are living in close quarters here in the village, and having privacy in a yard is valuable, considering we don't have much of that because we do have close quarters. So I feel like most people would be pretty happy with that. I would, at least, so I can speak for myself and my wife. I would be happy with that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. That's all. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in support? Okay, is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the application?
With that, I think we shall close.
Would you like to continue the conversation
Sorry?
Would you like to continue the conversation with the applicant? Do you have any additional questions for the applicant? And it appears that she also has a document that she wishes to submit
Do you
for
have
the record.
something to add, Ms.?
Yeah, Christine, if you could just come and speak.
I have a petition, I guess you would call it, of all the neighbors in front and one behind that could see the variance, the fence that I put on. And they signed that they didn't have a problem with it. Actually, none of them could even see it. They had to walk up to my house and in the side yard to see it at the time. But there's
Can we
several
introduce
neighbors-
that into the documentation for the case, please?
So they're across the street and behind. I didn't get the signatures of my neighbor 17. Nat's on the other side of me, but I didn't get the signatures of the deck owners.
"17 Filkins, where the deck is located, did provide comment, and that's in the staff report."
So we're closing the public portion.
If you don't have any additional questions for the applicant,
Any additional questions, gentlemen?
I have none.
Going,
So Christine-
going,
okay, we have no questions.
gone.
So, Christine, if you could have a seat back into the audience.
Okay?
And at this point, the zoning board of appeals will discuss your application and we'll go through the standards.
Okay, thank you.
So at this point, the deliberations involve there are a number of very specific points that need to be considered.
Yep.
And we'll start with those. The first point to be considered is, will an undesirable change be produced to the character of the neighborhood or detriment to the nearby properties should the requested variance be granted? Undesirable change.
And I just want to remind the zoning board, as you're discussing this application, that you can move to approve on condition of lesser relief. So
Understood.
the applicant has requested 9 feet, but if you deem, based on the application and the documentation submitted, that a shorter fence is more
Right.
appropriate.
Is that a motion that I can
Oh, absolutely.
make?
Yep, and should, after the discussion, if that's the direction you would like to go, I will aid that.
And that would be an option for the applicant.
How it would work is, let's say that you decide that a 2-foot fence is appropriate. You would say, we approve on condition that the applicant construct a 2-foot fence in the location as submitted. So we can fashion that. And I say 2 foot because I don't want to influence the board at all. But do not approve a 2-foot.
So back to the undesirable change. I have mixed feelings about this. It's a big ask, 9 feet. And the word undesirable is kind of loaded. I think it's a dangerous change. I think a 9-foot fence is subject to wind. It could be dangerous for the applicant. It could blow into the house. It could fall down on her. It's as tall as this room almost. I do think it would be an undesirable change, Mr. Stuckey.
Looking at the fence, I believe one of the criteria about building the additional height would be a replacement of at least that stretch of fence rather than.
What, is that on the table?
We could certainly make it a condition of allowing any height variance.
So if we make it a condition that it's a 7-foot fence and it replaces the 24-foot piece of existing stockade that's there now,
That would be an option.
sorry,
That would be an option.
that would be an option.
Yep.
Now, I don't find that to be an undesirable change. I find 9 feet to be undesirable, especially if it's perched on top of an older fence. Well,
Forgive me. At this point, it's just up to the board. That's okay.
any other comments about?
Well,
item
I'll
one?
say with respect to the 7-foot fence, it's allowed as of right if you move it into the property, so I would, if we're gonna go that way, I would prefer to follow the code and not grant the variance. I said,
Well, so would I, but I don't think that a 7-foot is an that word
I take your
undesirable.
point. I take your point. It's just that I would be less comfortable with a 7-foot conditional fence as opposed to a 7-foot fence allowed by right. It's,
Point taken.
So Justin, I'm gonna put you on the spot, because keep in mind that none of this has to be unanimous. Justin, what are your thoughts?
I'm just wondering, have we allowed 7-foot fences in the past on the property line?
So, if you recall, in recent times, there was an application before the Zoning Board of Appeals where and again, precedent, you're not setting precedent here. But if the question is, has the zoning board approved something similar to, recently a 6-foot stockade with approximately 1 foot to 1.5 feet of lattice was approved on a property in the village.
on condition that there be vegetation associated with, that
Correct.
screened that fence.
Correct.
Is that the one up on High Street?
It was on Roselawn.
And that was actually a new fence construction as well. The entirety was being built at that
Correct.
time.
Correct. And so, Mr. Sparks is correct that one of the conditions was a significant amount of landscaping be added to that.
We need to vote on this
The-
item.
well,
You can save the vote till the end, so you can go through all the standards and just
And then
discuss
vote at
them.
the end?
And then vote at the end. Yep.
I will add one point to this undesirable change. If one walks Filkin Street end to end, South Street end to end, all of the houses are similarly situated. They're close together. They all have raised first floors. That is all part and parcel of the character of the neighborhood. And it's one that, as a practical matter, physically reduces the level of expectation and privacy that any given owner might have with respect to their particular property.
Number 2, can the benefit sought be achieved in some feasible manner other than an area variance? Well, landscaping was brought up. Speaking for myself, we have a very similar situation, a deck that sticks out the back of our house, and we have 20-foot tall yew trees. You can't see or hear the neighbors. Now, granted, they've been there for 30 years, but yeah, I think landscaping would come into a solution here, a compromise solution. So can a benefit be achieved in another manner? I say yes. Gentlemen?
I think that you're correct. Some of the landscaping, arborvitae, yew trees, sorry, having a hard time speaking in straight sentence this evening. While they could provide a solution, I think the time frame may be a question in this particular case as well. With the trees and the plants would, of course, take some time to reach something of that nature of height.
Do they still have those caliper things that put mature plantings in?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I live on a property that is now been developed for 7 years, has a 6-foot fence running along the property line with arborvitae along the fence. Those trees are already, after 6 or 7 years, 9 to 10 feet tall. Now, granted, it makes a good point here that this is not an immediate solution, but it is a code compliance solution.
But I think it's part of a planned solution. So to answer the question, can it be, are there other feasible solutions? Yes, is my take on that. Will the proposal have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood? Environmental? I don't think so.
I think with the construction of a new fence, specifically in that area where you're asking to go taller, it would certainly have less of an environmental impact than the tenant, or the early solution that was put in place by the applicant. They're trying to build over the 3 feet over the existing fence.
Yeah. So if environmental conditions allow for aesthetic conditions as well, and I think they do, so someone driving down the street would catch at best a fleeting glimpse of a fence between two houses very narrowly fit together. So I think in that respect, probably not. And if there is landscaping associated with it, even less of an environmental impact.
Well, when I hear environmental, I think runoff, I think
I
soil
understand,
conditions.
but
I think-
I'm trying to find different ways to come to yes, if it's possible to do so, right? So interpreting environmental as more than simply water running off the property allows me to just, is a factual basis that will support a grant of variance if we choose to give one. So that's my concern.
Additionally, looking at it, I believe the request was only for 24
24
linear
feet, linear feet.
So it is not the entire length of
No.
that side of the property, and which also, to me, has a,
Yeah, frankly, I don't think it would be that noticeable from the street.
That's my point. Whether you walk down the street or drive down the street, one catches at best a fleeting glimpse of this fence. But it is an aesthetic variation from the rest of the neighborhood.
Moving on. Number 4, is the requested area variance substantial? Oh, yeah. It's substantial.
Yeah. If anything, this is
50% higher fence than
Yeah.
allowed.
If anything, this is the provision that weighs most heavily against granting this variance.
Number 5, has the alleged difficulty been self-created? You know, this is always one of those questions that's hard to answer. And most of the time, my experience on this board, the answer is yes, it is self-created. You don't have to build that deck there. You don't have to build that garage there. But in this case, the difficulty is definitely not created by the applicant. Or what the applicant perceives to be a difficulty was not created by her.
And how do you define the difficulty for your purposes here?
Noise pollution, light pollution, privacy. I mean, privacy is one of those, you know, kind of subjective terms.
Yeah, well, that for me is the difficult.
I mean, our neighbors can see in our house too.
Yeah,
We pulled the blinds down.
right.
So that's why I say it's subjective. Sometimes we simply leave the blinds open. I don't care if they see me.
well,
That's a personal decision only the applicant can make for herself.
so,
But
Philip,
but the difficulty has arisen from the behavior of this neighbor. And
This presents the classic difficulty in land use law, was whether any difficulty has to be judged subjectively from the perspective
Well,
of
seriously,
the person,
it's
or objectively.
yeah, well, this is,
Far enough, my recollection is that in most circumstances, the difficulty under discussion has to be an objective one that any person in the same or similar circumstances would experience.
I agree. That's why I said the privacy part of that statement is subjective. But in terms of light pollution, noise pollution, that's more quantifiable.
Yes, but there's no evidence in the record of those quantities. Right?
No, the applicant is entitled to be on her property without noise pollution or light pollution from the neighbor.
Up to a point, that's true. Right, at what point does light pollution or sound pollution become objectively offensive, right? And we have no evidence in the record that we've crossed that line.
Just to jump in, noise is very difficult to measure.
Is there a decibel limit in town?
I'll tell you this much, in the regulatory environment, I would not suggest that we ever discuss a decibel, because what is okay for me may not be okay
Of
for you.
course.
And so noise ordinances become very difficult. The measurement of
My-
noise and annoyance is very difficult.
My whole point in that discourse was that this question, which is usually a toss away, it's always self-created. You don't need to widen your driveway, park on the grass, you know. This is a little different. This is something where the impetus for this application came from elsewhere.
Correct, but are there means
Sir?
that the applicant could reestablish privacy within the code? So is the hardship self-created by the desire to put up a 9-foot fence? And are there other means that could be so that the applicant wouldn't appear before you to deal with that privacy? And again, and I guess this is also for the benefit of those in the audience, just because the board finds that, yes, it is a self-created hardship, does not preclude them from taking action to approve an application either. So you're gonna hear a lot of conversation, and I just wanna explain that. So I guess I ask the board to look at it that way. Are there means that the applicant could have taken to meet those needs of privacy and be within the code?
Okay. Well, I didn't want to toss off that question like we usually do. You know, these variances are almost always self-created difficulties. And this is a little different case, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. You know, because I think the applicant's been very passionate and very articulate about her position. And I'm not sure that this forum is the right place to deal with neighbor disputes. But I just want to recognize that I think that this difficulty that the applicant has been foisted on her from the outside, not on her property, from elsewhere. Sir?
Yes, if I may. So, Philip, I wanted to take a minute to follow up with you because I think you had an interesting point regarding the window height and the position of the houses within the neighborhood. And while, yes, all of the houses are at the same height, does having the deck added on, it now allows the person that is, say, looking across the property line to be approximately the width of the deck closer to the property line rather than being inside the house. They're now, don't remember what the width of the deck is, but we'll say 10 feet closer to the property line and still at that same height. So they're now looking with a much more,
Well, the angle's sharper.
right, a sharper angle, allowing them to see more tightly inside the neighbor's
Right,
previous
I
privacy
concede the
space.
point.
It did leave me wondering, I was thinking about this as well, that trying to do the quick trigonometry in my head, which was not happening, of what a 7-foot fence 10 feet back from the property line looks like. compared to-
Isosceles triangle.
I know, I just couldn't do it fast enough. But what that looks like relative to a 9-foot fence at the property line relative to the height of someone standing on a 4-foot tall deck.
Right.
We're getting off topic here.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
I can
Because
appreciate the engineering
What we're
discussion.
talking about is the degree of privacy that either property owner might have in the condition prior to the construction of the deck. Right, so if I took that deck away entirely, so, and I were to walk up to what I assume is the second floor bedroom, judging from the photographs that are in the record. So I have a full and complete view of 15 Filkin Street from the second floor bedroom of 17 Filkin Street, right? So the diminution in the level of privacy afforded by the deck by allowing someone to stand a few feet closer gives them, I think, no greater view of the property than they would have if they were standing in that second story window. Right? So,
What about adding in the time factor of the length of time that somebody is in a bedroom looking out a window versus on a deck?
I'll allow that there are differences, right?
Yes.
Okay. And now we are you talk about trigonometry, we're getting down to sines and cosines here, right? And now we start to cross over into the difference between an objective loss of privacy and a subjective loss of privacy. I do not deny that Ms. Strandland here has experienced a subjective loss of privacy that is particularly important to her. But I am struggling with whether the zoning law, which is our obligation to, that sets the standard for what we do. So takes account of subjective rather than objective losses of privacy. And I'm not sure that it does.
Are we ready to vote on these considerations?
So let's talk about this. Is there a desire from any board members to grant lesser relief in terms of a 7-foot fence for 24 feet?
Well, I would like to give an option to the applicant that the board votes on a 7-foot fence, 24 feet in length, of all new construction. That is, the old fence would have to be removed in that 24-foot stretch. And if that is, I move that the board vote on that proposal.
Okay. Let me just jot that down. So approve on condition that the fence shall be 7 feet by 24 feet in the same location as proposed by the applicant. Now, this does not negate if the applicant would prefer to be code compliant and have the fence. That's still an option.
If they wish to
Correct.
reapply for the original specifications.
Correct. So the thing with any sort of approval is an applicant, if they don't like that particular approval, they don't have to abide by it. So because, let's suppose you do vote on the condition of 7 feet by 24 feet, and the applicant says, I'm not interested in that, they don't have to construct it.
So even if that conditional proposal is approved by the board, the applicant is under no obligation to act on
Correct.
it.
Correct. And let me add, approve on condition that the fence shall be 7 foot by 24 feet in the same location as proposed by the applicant, and shall be I'm going to have to wordsmith this a little, but what I'm getting at is shall be new construction in its entirety. So that 7-foot panel will be one. It will not be be as proposed where
It'd be
we've had,
it would be one new 7-foot
correct. Yep.
vertical.
Yep, so it wouldn't be that we've got an existing 6-foot, we're gonna tag on a foot,
There will be no fence on fence,
correct.
which is pretty much predicated by the fact that we're asking to remove the old one.
Mhm.
Additionally, Jill, that would then say that the new section would only need to be the 24 feet. The existing fence outside of that 24-foot would be allowed to remain as is.
Correct, correct.
I'm going to pipe in here because I'm not altogether happy with this proposal. We call fences taller than 6 feet tall spiked fences for a reason. If you're on the other side of that fence, if any of us own the house on the other side of the fence, what would we think of? We said before, good fences make good neighbors. Not fences make good fences make good neighbors. Is this a good fence? If it viewed from the perspective of the neighborhood.
I wouldn't be making that proposal if it wasn't buried back halfway to the backyard, practically invisible from the street, and buried in some existing bushes and shrubs. And one, well, your point is that the neighbors might take issue with this. It might worsen the situation.
It could, yeah, we're searching for a compromise here.
Well, we started at 3, we're down to 1.
Well, we didn't start at 3, we started at 6.
Well, the applicant started.
The applicant started at 3 and had to remove that 3. Right, so we started at 6, right, which our zoning code says is the community's explanation of what a reasonable person's expectation of privacy should be. Hence, anything larger than that is, to use the colloquial, spiteful. Right? And now I'm still looking for what in our consideration of the standards factually underscores an additional foot here when that additional foot can be obtained, A, in compliance by moving it off the line, or B, an alternative is available through the use of vegetation or something like that. Granted, not immediate relief, but ultimately the relief the applicant seeks here, and does not necessitate us granting a variance at all.
The motion's on the table if anybody would like to second it.
And you also don't have to second it. So, if there's a further discussion, if you want to refine something, if you don't second it, that's okay too. If you want to come up with another resolution.
Perhaps let's keep the discussion going a little bit longer. I wanted to say to Philip, first of all, I think I misunderstood what you said the first time around when you said spiked fence. I heard spiked fence.
Oh.
So I was very puzzled for a moment.
So did I.
My apologies.
Now it makes more sense. But I did want to follow up, your question about how, if you were on the neighboring property,
Or any neighboring.
or any neighboring property, but specifically, I was thinking about the neighboring property. It was interesting to read the letter from the neighbors that's included, specifically, the neighbor at 15, basically saying that they're in support of it if it creates if it is a new construction rather than having the additional panels added above it.
Yeah.
it doesn't reflect back to your actual point. I just
No.
thought that was,
So remember too, that neighbors are not permanent, but our decision is, the decision runs with the land. And so we are affecting not just these two owners,
Mhm.
but their successors as well.
Where do we stand from a parliamentary point of view here?
In terms of, you can decide to entertain the resolution, which was to legalize the construction of a 24-foot long portion of a side yard fence that is 9 feet high. You can take action on that in any way that you decide. So I think the question becomes here, and Phil brings up a good point to ponder, is don't think about people, think about the use of land. And what decision you're making, is that appropriate?
So what are we voting on right now? Are we voting on the 1 foot?
Well,
option?
it's entirely up to you. So that's on the table, if somebody wants to second that.
And it hasn't been.
It has not been. Or you can take action on the original resolution, which is to legalize the construction of a 24-foot long portion of a side yard fence that is 9 feet high.
Or I could move that we go back to the original application.
or we could propose another proposal, saying.
Which was,
You know, because the resolution is, but then you are approving it or denying it, and you can approve it on condition, and you can deny it.
well, the original application, you're saying.
Correct. So, and the option with a variance is to approve lesser relief.
Then, since we don't have a second on the 1 foot motion, then I move that we go back to a vote on the original application for the 3 foot addition.
Okay, so that would be.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second the motion.
All right.
Okay, so the motion is to legalize the construction of a 24-foot long portion of a side yard fence that is 9 feet high.
Okay.
Is there any additional discussion?
We have to vote on each of the,
No,
No.
you can just do it all at one.
yeah. Okay.
So the first then, the motion was by Dan, and then you had Phil as the
Seconded by
second.
Phil, yeah.
Okay.
So the first item is, will an undesirable change?
And you don't have to vote on each individually. You can just vote on it all at one time.
All 5 at once?
Yep, so the resolution being to legalize the construction of a 24-foot long portion of a side yard fence that is 9 foot high. And so the zoning board has gone through those standards, you've had discussion about it, and so now you're moving on that particular
Oh,
resolution.
we used to vote on each of those 5 points.
I know,
You
yeah,
don't have to.
you don't have to.
All right, very good.
I think, I guess it depends on the staff's liking. My comfort level is to have the boards go through all of the standards and discuss them and then vote on one. I find it easier.
Need to go back to my Robert's Rules of Order. So the request to legalize the construction of a 24-foot long portion of side yard fence that is 9 feet high. All in favor?
Correct.
Those not in favor?
Nay.
Motion is denied. We're sorry.
So Christine, we can discuss your other options tomorrow morning, okay? I'll call the next case. Case 2 is an area variance. The address is 50 Summit Street. The applicant is McAval Trades LLC. The request is to construct an addition to an accessory structure, a garage, not meeting the setback requirement.
All right. Who's going to talk about this project?
Hi, I'm Mark Loria, the homeowner at 50 Summit Street. Just wanted to introduce myself and I can
chime in as needed, but let the boss take it from here, I think.
Hi, everybody.
Oh,
I'm only talking in front of a few people, but I don't do very well. My name's Kelsey Mack. So my husband, I do all the books for us, but I'm the one who applies for permits and gets, good relationships with clients. So I applied for the original permit for the garage addition to Mark, and he came back granting the building permit, but also letting us know that the survey that we submitted shows that the client's garage is currently at 4.4 foot from the property line, and that the code requires 5 foot for the structures. When he moved in, the pool's not there anymore, but the existing garage has been there. So Mark Lenzi let us know that if we wanted to build the garage addition, that we would have to, based on the code, if you're looking at the back of the garage, in order to come out right and left to be flush, which is what we had intended to do, but based on the code, we would have to come in, I think, 6 inches, like a jog into the right. So Mark Lenzi said, this is, if you approve that, this is how we can move forward, or unless you want to discuss with the client. So the homeowner and I had conversation, and knowing that we would obviously apply for the variance, he wanted to wait. And the purpose of it really is the aesthetic of it coming flush off the back, right and left. And in the application, he did have his next door neighbor write, I think, an email to Jill that she put in here as well, approving and, the motion of this. And I did include today, I think, the metal roof that is being proposed to be put on is a black R-style roof,
just on the addition?
just on the addition. Yep, the garage itself is not changing at all. And the siding that would be used is, we would color match as close as possible to the existing garage. It would be vinyl sided, so it blends in.
Is there no drawing that shows the footprint of the garage and the addition together?
So we do have, I actually have it in my let me see if it's in this packet. Oh, yeah. I see the 2 drawings that were submitted in the original addition permit that we did, we have on file, I should say, that was issued. But it does show the existing garage, and then kind of like a side view. I mean, it is a sketch, excuse me, but it shows the proposal as far as what the pitch would be on the back, that the metal roof would be there. Obviously vinyl sided, just showing that, it would go, each hole, 4 holes into
Yeah,
the ground.
Thank you. The applicants usually submit something like this.
Yes.
With a superimposed,
Oh, on the survey itself? Oh, I see.
And that was done, if you look a couple pages after that, there is an aerial photograph that shows the extension of the addition of the garage. So we have some applicants that choose to throw it on the survey map, and then others that choose to provide an aerial photo. So in this
it's on
instance,
that aerial.
we have the aerial photo, and it's not the one that I supply. It's actually prior to the comment provided by the neighbor.
Oh, there it is, okay. All right. And how about elevations? I mean, are there windows, are there doors?
There is going to be on, let's see, if you look at page 2 of this packet, I essentially just really copied and pasted what my husband had put in for the proposal, which we had originally applied for and had been issued the permit without this variance piece. But there are, let's see, because I'm obviously not the builder, but No, there are no windows. I'm not sure what the homeowner's using it for, what the intentions are, maybe storage or
How-
something.
How tall is it?
It is
You shouldn't have to be asking these questions.
6 foot wide by 18, or I'm sorry, 6 foot by 18 foot wide. And then the height, I'm assuming, is on here.
Does it go right up to the roof line of the garage? Is it halfway up?
It would meet the back part of the roof line of the garage. So it would come off flush with the 312 pitch and be flashed right to the house, or right to the structure.
So essentially, if I'm understanding the application correctly, is that this is an addition to that rear portion that the neighboring property, they would not notice, other than the fact that the roof will be different. It will be a different material, and the siding will also be vinyl, which is a different material than the existing garage.
Correct.
So no doors, no windows on that rear portion, but in shape, it will mimic the existing. It will
Exactly.
be an addition to.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
So the item for the zoning board to keep in mind is that the request is to continue that distance from the property line of 4 feet, 4 inches, and take that back a total of 6 feet. So we're adding on an addition to the garage of 6 feet by 18 feet and maintaining that side yard setback.
To a structure that's already non-conforming, pre-existing non-conforming.
Correct.
Anything else?
I don't believe so. I don't know if Mark wants to say anything else, but I think just the reason why we're here is just because he wanted, on an aesthetic standpoint, instead of having a jog in the back, to have it be fluent, I guess, for lack of a better term. So
And the siding will be the same, that shiplap siding?
it's going to be a vinyl sided, probably like a D4. And color-wise, we're just going to match as close as possible. Is it wood? Do you have, like, yeah. Anything else?
Gentlemen? Would anyone else like to speak in support of this project?
I am vehemently opposed to this. No, I'm just kidding.
This
Yeah,
is all on the record, I'd like to remind you.
Oh, yeah. Sure. No jokes on the record. Yes, I am in support of it. Aesthetically, it would be lovely not to jog in. I think it'd actually look worse for my neighbors if it looked like that. So, yeah, and unfortunately, in 1932, they didn't have the wherewithal to give me that offset originally. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. And opposition? Nope. I declare the public portion of this presentation closed, and the board will now deliberate on the application. In the famous 5 bullet points that we must deliberate on, will an undesirable change be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties? I say no.
I would concur.
So do I.
Can we expand upon that?
Sorry?
So no
Okay.
comma,
Oh,
Would you like me to try?
well, I was going to say, the fact that it's a pre-existing non-conforming structure and that the proposed addition is in the back, invisible from the street. It's kind
And
of like,
in line with the existing
and
structure.
in line
you know,
with, it's, so, will it, I say no, all in agreement? Can the benefit be achieved in some feasible manner other than an area variance? Not really.
Well,
well,
no, one could
Well, you could,
comply.
well,
with a
you,
6
you
or
could
a-
do the jog. You could do the jog thing.
with a 0.6 foot jog in the side of the garage. which-
Something I had to do one time.
Well, yeah, but the point is, you could comply, you could achieve substantially the same end by strict compliance.
Can it be achieved? Yeah, I think it can be achieved by jogging the thing. So, yes, vote please.
Oh, you don't have to
We don't
vote on
have to
each
go to the
individual.
What?
We
We've
can-
got
we
you
can
in such a
discuss and then go
habit.
to the end and then vote all of it then.
Can't get out of the old habits. Will the proposed area variance have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood? I say no.
This strikes me as a truly de minimis.
Is there going to be a
Variance.
gutter on the backside? A rain gutter on the backside?
Yeah, we closed the public hearing, but I do know that answer, so I will answer that on the record. There will be a gutter on that portion.
Is the requested area variance substantial?
Can we go back to 3?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so-
Environmental, okay.
Yep. I had heard no, and is there additional information to go along with that no?
I think, to speak of a fraction of a foot for a distance of 6 inches on a property of this size is truly de minimis.
The 0.6 foot across the length of 6 feet.
Right,
I think you said 6 inches. Phil.
I'm sorry.
No, just checking to make sure I heard it correctly.
Moving on. Is the requested variance substantial? Not really. It's what, a half, 6 inches on top of 5 feet?
3 feet, so it's about, 3 square feet?
About 3 square feet, yeah.
And of the, 5 foot setback, you're 10%, or request of a variance of 10% of the, well, not even 5 inches, 6 inches is,
Well, it's 4.4 feet, right? And it's 5 is allowed,
Mhm.
so we're talking a half a foot.
give or
You know,
take.
just over 10% for, again, for a distance of approximately 6 feet.
Number 5, has the alleged difficulty been self-created? Of course it has. I don't mean that negatively.
Well, I'll quibble with that. I mean, it's the code itself that creates this problem for them, so.
So, may I hear a vote on this,
Shall we make a proposal
shall we
to
make a
vote on for this application?
I propose that we accept this application as written. May I have a second, please? Thank you.
Okay, and we'll do the resolution to construct an addition to an accessory structure, garage, not meeting the setback requirement.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck. Move to adjourn.
So
Second.
moved.
Nobody's gonna second it?
Seconded.